If Penn State is considered the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten in 2025, then how does the rest of the conference stack up against the Nittany Lions, specifically USC?
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thanks for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, you can pick the platform, you can download this podcast, and however you watch, wherever you listen, this show is always going to be free. And I can't tell you enough how much I'm always going to appreciate your support. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So earlier today, I took my place on the Locked On Big Ten Squad show. Yep, you've seen it. If you haven't, check it out. This week, we had a particularly contentious episode. I make that happen. You're welcome. Hey, it makes for good TV, right? Anyways, the first two segments of this particular episode, it'll be up Wednesday or Thursday, had Locked On College Football's host, Spencer McLaughlin, offering up his version of the Big Ten Conference's power rankings. This was his own personal power ranking poll. Before we even got started, I said, hey, Spencer, what was the criteria you used? What went into you ranking teams 1 through 18? Well, I host Locked On College Football, and I watch the games. And there was a little bit of sarcasm there from him. But right then and there, I knew, all right, this is going to be a whack poll. It's going to be a long show. Get ready, Mark. Feel the disrespect because it's coming. And it happened. It did. So Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. I think those were his top 6 picks. I know for sure the top 3 were Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. And I'm pretty sure Illinois was number 4. As far as number 5 and 6, it doesn't matter. You'll understand where I'm going with this here really quickly. I think he had USC at number 8 or 9. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It was a stupid list. It didn't have, as far as I'm concerned, didn't have any thought going into it other than I follow college football. So I know. I totally agree. Spencer got one thing absolutely perfect, accurate. Penn State should be considered the number 1 team in the Big Ten Conference going into the 2025 season. They returned pretty much everybody, anyone of significance on either side of the ball. And I'll even accept Spencer's opinion that Ohio State should be number 2. And because, look, they've been pretty consistent over the years, right? Despite not being able to beat Michigan, they've still been pretty consistent. They are the reigning national champions. But we saw what happened to Michigan the year after they won the national championship. They took a big step back. So where I actually started to roll my eyes is when we got past the top 2 teams. Like, no one knows what anyone is going to get this year because there's been a massive amount of roster turnover. Except for Penn State, everybody else, and Illinois to a lesser degree, and USC even to a lesser degree. And I'll explain my points here momentarily. So, a lot of roster turnover. Penn State returns their quarterback. Illinois returns their starting quarterback. Everybody else, exactly. It's kind of like starting over. Even at Ohio State, a lot of roster turnover on that defensive side of the ball, and they've got a new starter at quarterback. But again, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You might know the names, the guys who were recruited. They were playing. Maybe they even had a backup role last year. Well, until you actually see them on the field as the number 1 guys playing the majority of the repetitions, no one really knows. So yeah, I get giving Ohio State the benefit of the doubt, even though they're breaking in a new quarterback and like 8 new guys on the defensive side of the ball. Yes, they do return Caleb Downs. They do return Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver. Ohio State will have the talent to compete. But again, you don't know how good they'll be until they actually play together on the field as number ones. A lot of the guys on that team last year got drafted. So eventually I took my turn and I asked the question, asked the panel, I said, what is the real difference between number 3, Oregon, and say the number 6 team or wherever you have USC ranked? Because look, besides Penn State and Illinois returning their starting quarterbacks, I'll say it again, everyone else is breaking in someone new, whether it's via the transfer portal or just, you know, a backup. It's next man up, that type of situation. In other words, I said, Spencer, why do you think Oregon is the third best team? Especially after you got your butts spanked in that last game. I mean, you've got your presumptive starting quarterback, Dante Moore. Yeah, he's been in the system. But so far, his experience on the field, he has an 11-9 touchdown to interception ratio. That's bad. I mean, that's literally 1-to-1. You cannot be there as a starting quarterback. Oregon's wide receiver group is kind of in disarray right now while they kind of figure out who's going to be the guy. Don't forget, Evan Stewart is out for the year. And yeah, they've recruited some players, but Oregon isn't known for developing wide receivers. They bring in guys from the transfer portal who have already, been developed. Their offensive line is kind of in flux, but they should still be solid on defense. So just let's compare their situation to USC's. Jade Mayaba, he has 4 games starting experience in USC system, playing for Lincoln Riley. The offensive line, similar situation to Oregon. If John Ray Reed and DJ Wingfield can, lock down their spots at at center and left guard respectively, USC's in a really good spot. Elijah Page returns at left tackle. Alani Noah for his 3rd year starting at right guard. Tobias Raymond seems to have taken ownership at right tackle. And if he's not ready, Justin Tuanu is ready to step in. Don't even argue about the wide receiver position with me when you're comparing USC to Oregon. Just don't. I mean, USC wins that matchup head-to-head easily. And USC's defense, they never got boat raced last year. And that defense is going to take a similar step forward to what they did last season. They improved by 10 points. They went from allowing 34 points per game to 24 points per game. And now you've added more depth, more quality depth. There's no reason not to think that USC's defense might be one of the best in the conference. I'm not going to take the time to break down each team that was ranked ahead of USC. But my point was this. The difference between the second-ranked team in the conference, Ohio State, and teams 3 through 7, 8, 9, it's pretty negligible. I mean, look, you had Indiana last year. They won 10 games. They've got a new transfer quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, came in from Cal. Michigan, they're getting a little bit of the benefit of the doubt for some reason. Spencer had him in his top 6. They're still replacing everyone, and they're trying to figure out their quarterback situation. Heck, are they even going to throw more than 15 passes in a game? It's part of their culture. They like to run the ball. I mean, they even had Iowa and Minnesota ahead of USC. That's why I know this list was whack. And it's almost like, you know what, I'm just going to say it just because I know it's going to get under Mark's skin. I don't really believe he thinks Iowa and Minnesota are better teams than USC in 2025. If he does, maybe we should reconsider him being the host of that show. Stick to the Ducks. I mean, he was all over the place. And I think by the time I was done making my points, even Spencer understood that it's a toss-up once you take Penn State out of the equation. So push actually came to shove, and they said, "Fine, Mark, where would you have ranked USC?" Okay, I said I could see them at number 5. I really wanted to say number 3 or 4, but I didn't want to come off as a homer. That's what this show is for. So here is my power rankings 3 weeks before Big Ten Media Days. This is Mark's power rankings for the Big Ten Conference on Locked On USC. Tell your friends, tell everybody. Make sure, in fact, I love my everydayers, but you guys, I need some help from you. Start recruiting. Let's have the number 1 recruiting class. Start telling your friends, your family, join the show, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, smash that thumbs up, click that bell notification. All right, here's my power rankings 3 weeks before Big Ten Media Day. Penn State's number 1. I think I've made the case. I think everyone would make the same case. Too much talent returning. Ohio State number 2. They've earned the benefit of the doubt. Illinois, I'm going to put them at number 3. They returned their quarterback. They won 10 games last year. They play pretty good defense, and the schedule sets up well. Don't forget, they host USC. Number 4, I will put USC, and I already explained why. Number 5, Oregon. In fact, I think they take a big step back in 2025. If you're old enough, been around the message boards long enough, you'll understand when I say this. The big fade. It's coming in 2025 for Oregon. Number 6, I got Nebraska. Dylan Raiola is returning at quarterback. Number 7, I got Indiana. Number 8, Washington. Number 9, Iowa. Number 10, Michigan. They lost way too much. Again, new quarterback. Got sanctions looming. This one might surprise everyone. I got UCLA at 11. I think Nico Iamaleava, I think he makes them better. Not great, just better. Number 12, Minnesota. Number 13, Wisconsin. Number 14, Michigan State. 15, Rutgers. 16, Maryland. 17, Purdue. 18, Northwestern. And let's be honest, when you get into the bottom 6, who cares? I mean, usually when you say UCLA, you say, who cares? But I think they'll be slightly better this year. Deshaun Foster, not a man of many words, not a great public speaker. I think he's going to be okay at UCLA if he surrounds himself with the right staff. You can't substitute passion, and he loves his alma mater. And when he played running back, he was a pretty hard-nosed player. So I think whatever he's trying to build there, he's got a good start. We'll see if he can maintain and if he can continue to build on that. Anyways, so that's my power rankings for the Big Ten Conference. You want to check out everybody else's, make sure you check out the Big Ten Squad Show when that thing is published later this week. Give me some feedback, both places, here and there. Looking forward to it. All right, got a couple more segments to go here. X's and O's or the Jimmies and the Joes? Is it about the system or is it about the players? Again, that was one of the topics, one of the conversations we had on this week's episode of the Big Ten Squad Show. We'll talk about it coming up next. You ever wished managing your money was easier? We all do, right? With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal chief financial officer, giving you full visibility, total control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, all of your spending, and you can do it in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also going to start building some wealth. My biggest challenge is managing my spending habits. If I got it, I spend it. Monarch Money makes makes that so much easier for me. If I can afford my own personal CFO, guess what? So can you. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Is it the system that makes the players great, or do the players make the system great? Age-old question, right? X's and O's or the Jimmies and the Joes? If we're being 100, if we're being completely honest with each other, it's both. It's both. However, I will say this. I kind of lean in the camp that if you're a new player, regardless of how much experience you have, regardless of how good you are, you can't just walk into a new system and be successful. There's an adjustment period. You know, you got to get familiar with your teammates, right? There's the communication process. You got to learn new terminology. It's all the little things behind the scenes. So you could be that 5-star, can't miss Mr. Everything coming out of high school. You could be that 4-star, 5-star transfer out of the transfer portal. Or, you know, be somebody who just developed for 3 or 4 years somewhere else, and you're coming in to be that dude. You're the Will Howard of 2025 going to help Ohio State win a national championship. But remember, Kansas State let Will Howard go. So was it Ohio State's system? Was it Chip Kelly? Or did Will Howard make it go? Was he that missing piece? So again, this was another discussion point from this week's squad show. Was the system can make any player good? Let's take Penn State, for example. They brought in 3 wide receiver transfers. They brought these guys in. They wanted to give Drew Allar every possible advantage he could have. They've got a strong running game. We know that. That's part of their culture. One of those wide receivers they brought in, one of the 3, you might recognize the name, Kyron Hudson. Yeah, that guy, Mr. One-Handed Catch for USC. I'll say it again. Penn State returns a really strong running game, but they're all everything tight end. Tyler Warren, he's gone. He's in the NFL now. Mackey Award winner. He earned that playing against USC last year. Penn State's offensive coordinator, Andy Kolenicki, considered one of the top offensive coordinators in college football, has a system that is really easy. Players can adapt quickly. So Zach Sako, we've done the crossover show before here on Locked on USC with the Penn State host. Apparently, Kolenicki's system makes everyone better. It's that easy. There's not going to be any adjustment period, any transition period. 3 wide receivers are going to show up. It's going to be like they were there for 3 or 4 years. I turned the argument around. I asked them. I said, would you rather have your 3 transfer wide receivers? Or would you rather have Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane? I knew I had checkmate when he said, I'll take the transfers because of the system. Okay. Ironically, it was interesting later on in the show when he was doing the breakdown of a different team. We're talking about the power rankings. He brought up how transfers are showing up to these new teams, to their new teams, and how they're going to need time to acclimate. Again, he was talking about a different program than his. Nevertheless, I just found that the argument kind of came full circle. And when you're watching the episode, watch my facial expressions when he brings up transfers needing time, because it was like, I just said that a little bit ago. You disagreed, but now you agree without saying you agree. It was, like I said, it was a fun show. So here, again, the question is it the player or is it the system? Lincoln Riley, right? he's supposed to have one of the most quarterback-friendly systems out there. Got a resume that'll back it up. I guess if you watched last year, though, you're thinking, well, what changed? What was different? Have the defenses caught up to Coach Riley's X's and O's? Or was Miller Moss and Jaden Miaba, were they just not up to the standard? After Miller Moss's first 3 starts as USC starting quarterback, starting with the Holiday Bowl, he was 3-0 as a starter, 8 touchdowns, just 1 interception. He was part of the Heisman conversation. We know eventually Jaden Miaba took over. And when Jaden took over, he flashed a lot of potential. He went 3-1 in his 4 starts. But there's still questions about whether he can do it for a whole year. A lot of, when he's good, he looks good. And even Coach Riley talked about it during the spring. And once spring camp ended, there's stuff they're working on with Jaden, trying to trim the fat when it comes to his decision making. A lot of people are going to say, and there is some credibility to this point. Miller Moss's quarterback style, he's a definite pocket passer. Doesn't fit what Coach Riley wants to do with his system. So he's a little bit hamstrung. Miller Moss isn't gonna beat you with his athleticism. He can run. He's tough as nails. He's not afraid of taking a hit. We watched him do it many times. But when Jaden was put in, apparently, according to Coach Riley, he was hurt, and that's why they didn't, use more designed runs with him. I'm not going to say he wasn't injured or he wasn't recovering from an injury, but I think back to his playing time early in the season against Utah State. Remember when he used that athleticism on that touchdown scamper? But I cannot wait. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jaden does as quarterback 1 without the incumbent competing with him. And you top that off, Jaden's healthy now. He fits the mold of what past Coach Riley quarterbacks used to do. How they used to hurt defenses with their legs. Like I said, we saw glimpses of it from Jaden. In 59 more days, when USC kicks off against Missouri State, we'll start to answer the question. Is it the X's and O's, or is it the Jimmies and Joes? But I thought it was an interesting conversation today. Thought I'd bring it back here, make it more USC specific. So hit me up with your feedback. Let me know. Don't forget, make sure you check out the Locked On Big Ten Squad Show this week. A lot of good, healthy debate. All right, one more segment to go. A little bit of recruiting news. It looks like USC, they're going to have to take out Texas A&M again, especially if they want to get Boobie Feaster's commitment this coming July 4th. Yeah, 2 days away. According to sources, the sources being wersc.com. Make sure you check it out when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Well, according to sources, it's a dogfight right now between USC and the Aggies. But USC feels pretty good about their chances. They feel like they're in a good spot. And look, if you've been following USC's recruiting this cycle, it's not like USC hasn't been in a few of these recruiting dogfights. And they've been winning them. That's why they feel comfortable that they're going to win another one. USC so far, I mean, it's been it's one of those things you say, been there, done that so far. You flipped TomTom. You went and got Talanoa Ely, Mark Bowman, Luke Wafel. Those are just a few of the dogfights USC was in, came out victorious. check this. I'm not going to say that Xavier Griffin helped USC's chances with Boobie Feaster. However, I have been told that Alabama was actually up there until very, very recently. Very recently. It was Alabama and then USC and Texas A&M battling it out for second place. I have no idea how much Peter had to rob Paul to get Xavier Griffin. Talk about NIL. But all of a sudden, Boobie wasn't as high of a priority for Alabama. Not this recruiting cycle. USC has a few things working in their favor, right? Number one, let's just start with his good friend, Jakeem Stewart. He's a really good recruiter, and he's really good friends with Ethan Feaster, Ethan Boobie Feaster. You don't have to take the words of Thanos, because he's the one who made the claim that he's a really good recruiter. Boobie said this when he was asked about the Trojans on his visit. He said, he gained a lot of insight about the football program from a player's perspective. Quote, I got a little source I talk to a lot. So that's my guy, Jakeem Stewart. He's from Louisiana, so he's just like me. I talk to him a good amount. He's like family and a top recruiter, end quote. Boobie is also really good friends with the 2027 quarterback that USC is going after hot and heavy, Peyton Houston. He's from Louisiana as well. Boobie is originally from Louisiana. He's now in Texas. But Peyton Houston, class of 2027. Ethan Feaster was also class of 2027 before he reclassified. I've mentioned it before. The two of them have talked about playing their college football together. Peyton and USC are in a really strong spot with each other right now. So, if that's the case, and if Boobie picks USC, I wouldn't hold your breath waiting too long for Peyton to make a commitment. You got Feaster, class of 2026 quarterback commit Jonas Williams. They've been talking a lot. Boobie he was talking about their time hanging out when he took his official visit to USC in June, back in I think the weekend of June 6th. He said, quote, we spent a ton of time together. He hung out with Jonas. They were getting to know each other. If he's going to be your quarterback, you might as well start a relationship with him. So I'm not sure what the determining factor will be. I don't think it's going to come down to NIL. I don't think the size of NIL is going to make a huge difference here. I've been told that USC's NIL offer was right there with Texas A&M's. So this comes down to, where does he see himself being developed the most, right? USC is known for putting quarterbacks and wide receivers in the league. And if that's the case, USC wins this recruitment hands down. But if distance and proximity to home is an issue, A&M is probably going to have his mom on their side. Bottom line is this: USC took out LSU and Texas A&M last year. Might as well keep knocking them down. Let's do it one more time. We're gonna find out in a couple days where Ethan Boobie Feaster wants to attend college. It looks like it's going to be a USC versus Texas A&M battle down to the end. We'll find out July 4th. Will it be a kaboom for USC? Fingers crossed, and then we do this when it happens. You know what else? No one else we do this when we say fight on. So until that next episode, everyone, you know what to do.